Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. We're going to go ahead and call today's workshop to order. This is the Flagler County Board of County Commissioners. Our workshop for Monday, May 5th. It is 1:01 p.m. If everybody could stand for the pledge, please. At this time in our agenda, we take a moment of silence for individual prayer, reflection, or meditation. We take this time to honor and remember our first responders and the men and women in our military who keep us safe and protect our freedoms at home and abroad. Thank you. Again, good to see everybody today. I got a couple items on our workshop agenda. We're going to first talk about an item that was pushed from public comment to the workshop, and that's regarding access to Justice Lane. So to start that discussion, Mr. Mangle.
Adam Mangle, Growth Management Director. Just got a couple of quick slides taken from the report and from the backup for this, just to kind of orient you to the property. And so, see here, this is the subject parcel outlined in light blue in the graphic on your display. And then you can see Justice Lane, the county's private driveway to the north, coming in off of Old Hall Creek Road, Old Hall Creek Road on the left-hand side. North is oriented to the top of this graphic, south to the bottom, east to your right, west to the left. And so you can see then the county's property, the fire tower is on the left. That's probably the one structure you can see of note with the shadow. And then also then I think that's the, maybe it was last used for the sheriff's evidence storage. I think it's got some general storage uses on the west side of Justice Lane, kind of across from the fire tower. The subject property is currently owned by the Kelly family. And then to the south, I believe, is more ownership by the Kellys. You can see there's actually 3 parcels. I didn't have much of these 3 parcels shown here for you, but so one access option that was mentioned and mentioned in the staff report, mentioned also by Pastor Hobbs, was the first one would be, could access be obtained from the parcel to the west? It's owned by a church out of South Florida. Understand that Pastor Hobbs has contacted them for the sale. I believe it's also now listed. I think we've heard recent information. Maybe he can speak more directly about it, but I believe it's listed for $1.5 million, and that they had not entertained the idea of an easement or any access, but certainly would entertain a purchase, and that didn't fit into the church's plans. Then to the south, we questioned could access from the Kellys. You can almost see their driveway. I can show it with a laser pointer, but not for the benefit of the board. But there's a driveway that's right at the corner where these kind of all the parcels kind of come together south of this. So if you take that west line of the subject, the light blue, and then run down, yes, perfect. And then you'll see that there's a driveway that's there. And again, realizing that property appraisers' lines are not survey lines, so we can't rely on this as saying, oh, well, it's there and it's already passing over the church's property. But could that access be present? Could that be something that could provide access to this parcel as well as an option in lieu of Justice Lane, knowing that we have several uses, among them access to the jail, which could pose conflicts for the church during their operations. Certainly also to mention for the record, have it in the staff report, guard facility, as I understand its location, is going to be just to the north of that bend. And again, if my folks with the pointer can help me out, I'll show it here, and then perfect. And so right up in that area should be the Florida State Guard facility. And so you'll effectively have it across the street. And so that'll be part of their training activities, their training facility. And then certainly we have then west of there, and I'll use my laser pointer one more time, And so in this area, that's the SMA men's intake facility that's happening. And so historical uses that we've had, you've heard the testimony before, the statement made before about SMA being present on the property, nonprofit, but certainly I'd probably go a step further with SMA. We've been in partnerships with them. We are in a partnership with them on the development of the men's intake facility. We advocated for them at the legislature in order for them to get some of the legislative allocation that they've had. We've had a long history working with them. Again, not to disparage a church as a nonprofit, but just that it's a different sort of relationship that we've had with SMA. And again, it's orientation here at the site with the jail, with the I suppose the alternatives there, that if we're not providing those that facility, then then certainly we'd provide it in a different facility, just a little bit further down. With that, this is the graphic that was submitted with the application by the church of what they would intend to develop. For the record, it's in the city of Bunnell, and so we would not have any review authority for this. This is, at this point, a drawing for us to look at, and it's very hypothetical. The church included in the application, in their letter, asking for access off of Justice Lane, so you get some idea of how that access would look. Particularly, that's our concern, is how the traffic flow would happen on Justice Lane, and that would be our concern. Submitting for the record, also, Justice Lane is not built to any kind of county-maintained road standard. It's not built to a paved standard. It is a glorified driveway, and so that's a concern to us. We had mentioned in the staff report that in the cover memo that maybe there'll be some need for some participation in the end some years from now, if we needed to have some improvement, some maintenance that would be done there. We'd be looking then potentially to anyone who's on that section of Justice Lane who uses it for access to cost share with us in that, because it's not a public street at this point. Alternatively, suppose another option for the board would be to designate Justice Lane as a public right-of-way subject to gas tax revenue. I would caution you on that because, again, it doesn't meet any kind of standard. And so that's when you heard that number today, again, from Road and Bridge about the maintenance and the dollar values, this is one of the ones that has, this is part of your millions, your multi-millions that we'd have to put into roadways if it was part of a roadway. Right now it's a driveway, and we're just patching potholes at this point, as best I know. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Moylan, I think, for any comments he's got at this point before we turn it over to Pastor Hobbs.
I wanted to follow up and bring to the board's attention the statute that was referenced in the request. It's, for the record, is Florida Statute 704.01, and it's the codification of an old common law principle called an easement of necessity. And in a nutshell, an easement of necessity, it says that you can't cut off a parcel from a public road. If you deed away part of your land, and that land you're granting has no access to a road, there is presumed to be an easement through the land you're retaining so that there is access to the public roadway. That principle has been codified in Florida statutes, and in the title review that Mr. Mengel has done, the best we can tell, it was not the lands of the county that cut off this parcel from Old Haw Creek Road, but rather the parcel immediately to the west of it, as you can, or to the left on that diagram that is projected presently. And so following the statute, the logic would have them build a driveway access through that parcel.
Mr. Chairman, if I could add, before the meeting, immediately preceding this workshop, Mr. Moylan asked me if I knew of any hindrance on any environmental condition, anything, presence of a wetland that would be on the west property that would prevent a driveway from being placed on that property, servicing the church on the east to allow them access to Old Haw Creek Road. And based on the aerial, and I think you've become well aware of it and what you've seen before, you can see in that southeast corner of the subject with the light blue, some white treetops. And what that tells us, some graying area, that's an indicator for us of seasonal wetlands. And so we can see potentially a stretch on the subject property that the church is interested in. And likewise, if you look then on the west parcel, just to the left, you don't see that on that one. It's not to say that there aren't any wetlands on the property, but the typical indicators that we would look for initially on an aerial photograph show that they're not present on this property. So I'm not aware of anything that would prohibit that access from being placed there. And certainly, as best I can tell, it would be possible to be able to provide some access through the west parcel to Old Hall Creek Road for the church.
If I could also just, I didn't mention, I did when this came around to you the first time. The reason we're bringing this to you is that traditionally we have not allowed property owners to use Justice Lane as their access. And if this board says, well, we're willing to go in a new direction, that's fine. Staff will carry that out and we'll put an easement on an upcoming agenda. But we didn't feel empowered at our level to decide one way or the other, and we were just sticking with the traditional policy of the county. And lastly, we did get a note from the sheriff's attorney that he is not in favor of this either. There wasn't any rationale. It's just a quick note. Not thrilled about it. Just using our common sense, churches, they don't generate traffic often, but when they do generate traffic, it is pretty heavy.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, he
Yes,
actually
sir.
prompted one more thought that I had. You can see also similar out parcels that are here, some of which are apparently landlocked. Then just north of the fire tower on the right-hand side, you see some other areas that are there. We had in the past had a land acquisition, you may remember, not through ESL funds, but we had a willing landowner. We were able to purchase one of these out parcels for less than $10,000. And certainly if that's the board's direction here with this, for us to not only for this parcel but for others, we can pursue that after suitable appraisals and the like for acquiring those, so that we don't have these come up in the future.
Okay.
That'll close. Thank you.
Thank you. At this next time, we'll bring up Pastor Hobbs. Afternoon, sir.
Hi, thank you. Pastor Larry Hobbs, Flagler County Baptist Church. Thank you for allowing me to be here and present this to you. Appreciate all the work that was gone into all of this to bring us to where we are. And I guess I have similar map up there for you as to what the county just provided to you. And so what I would say, a couple things just in response to some of these things, is that the wetlands that they were talking about that would be on, we'll call it the southeast corner of our subject property that we are looking to purchase. There are some there. I've already had a wetlands delineation done, paid for that to see what it is. And we have 7.5 buildable acres there. And out of 9 acres, we have 7.5 that are buildable. So that water mitigation has already, wetlands mitigation, not mitigation, but wetlands delineation has already been done on that property. And as Mr. Mingle said, the property is to the west of us. I've tried to contact them. I've actually sent somebody, it's a Haitian church, and I've sent somebody who's a missionary friend of mine who speaks Creole to go down to South Florida to actually speak with them in their native language, because I was getting nowhere. And to which they just said, contact our real estate. They wouldn't even talk to them. Contact our real estate agent. I contact the real estate agent. They just simply want to sell us that property. And at $1.2 million, that's not going to be feasible for us right at this moment, although it would be something that we would want to entertain later, to have basically 20 acres there instead of the 10 and kind of push it towards Old Hawk Creek. In response to the Florida Statute 704.01, part of the verbiage there reads the nearest practical route, the nearest practical route. And as I look at this, the nearest practical route that we have to that property is the obvious route that you see before you. It's Justice Lane. Justice Lane, the idea that it is a private driveway is really kind of just that. It's just an idea, in my opinion, because it is used for more than just a private driveway. First of all, Stuart Marchman is there. They are a 501c3 non-for-profit organization. It does not, they're not part of the county. They're their own private organization. organization. If you wanted to send them mails, something in the United States Postal Service, you would send it to not Old Hawk Creek Road, you would send it to Justice Lane. So apparently the United States government believes that that's a public road, not a private driveway. And the same thing would go for the jail down the road. And any concerns with that, and I understand the sheriff's concerns, I honestly do, but for me, it makes us feel safer, not less safe, to have that jail down there for whatever reason. I enjoy seeing the cars go there. I am the chaplain of the Bunnell Police Department, and I've had my share of taking people with them to the Sally Port down there and getting them enrolled into their couple of nights at the Green Roof Inn. So I'm very familiar with that area. I know what goes on down there. Like I said, I've transported people. I've actually transported people with them. We've had to arrest people from Stuart Marchman and take them just down the road. So like I said, I'm very, very familiar with that. And it's inside the city limits of Bunnell, which is exactly what we want to be. That's where we feel that the Lord would have our church to be there. Let me make another statement, if I could, please, about what is down there already. We know what's coming, what's down there, and all of that. And I look at Stuart Marchman, and I look at the jail, and I say those are remedial organizations. These are people who've already gotten themselves into trouble, and now we're trying to help them out. There's people who are addicts, that are there at Stuart Marchman, other problems like that they have. I know this because they've come to my church already. They literally have people give them rides from the institute there. They'll drive them and drop them off at our church so that they can come to church with us. I think it'd be nice if they just let them walk right to our church. It's right there. We want to help them any way we can. But the idea of you have preventative and you have remedial. All of us are in it together trying to help our county. And I look at our church not as not as remedial. We're trying to fix all this problem, but we're preventative. We don't want them to end up at the Green Roof Inn. We don't want them to end up at Stuart Marchman. And so we all work together in our county. And so that's my presentation real quick, is Flagler County Baptist Church partnering with Flagler County to serve our community. We've done that since the inception of our church, which is in 2017. And real quickly, to go through it, to give you an idea of us, our mission is to serve Flagler County by strengthening families, supporting the vulnerable, and building resilient, compassionate community through faith-driven outreach. Let me tell you a few things that we currently are doing to let you see that we are, in effect, working just like Stuart Marchman. We're working with the county. We're partnering with the county. And honestly, when we say that Stuart Marchman is a partnering organization, just last month, I was invited by this same county to go to the emergency management office, and they said, would you partner with us? And they said, we want to partner with you, and all these other churches here in the area, and they look at us as partners. And so I say, well, we are a partner. I hope it's not just when it's convenient one direction, because it's not for us. We're partners all the way around. Reaching children of Flagler County, we operate church buses that go around our county, not just in Bunnell. We're going all the way up into Palm Coast and bringing children to church who otherwise would not be able to attend. And we have families that mentor each child that comes, are given an assignment of a family is assigned a child to just love on them, to remember their birthdays, to make sure they're in church, to encourage them, and to offer that mentorship that they need. Also, we work in the nursing homes. We provide regular church services to the elderly, comfort and care. We do all kinds of things in the nursing home. Free counseling services. We offer counseling at our church, and people take advantage of it. And we do currently marriage counseling for struggling couples, support for those suffering from PTSD, addiction counseling with drug, alcohol, pornography, and other things. And then there's disaster relief, as I alluded to a moment ago, working with the county emergency management team. We've already done some of this with other counties, and we'll do it here. Of course, this is our home. But we were helping with Lee County and Charlotte County, and we organized a whole rescue team where I brought several men, a bunch of men, and we went there and we were helping people off the islands. They were trapped. We were tarping roofs. We were bringing food. We were bringing water. We do that not just for our county, but for other counties, but especially our county, because our heart is right here, and we've got the means and the people by which to do it. And in partnering with law enforcement, as I said a moment ago, I am the chaplain of the Bunnell Police Department. I'm happy about that. I'm very honored to have that position. I'm the very first chaplain, the very first person they've ever asked to be their chaplain, and it was right here that I got penned one night, and I was very happy about that. I enjoy serving and helping our police officers there, and also there's been many, many times where I have worked with the Sheriff's Department, their officers, and helping them with their men regularly. Do I meet with some of the deputies and counseling and things like that, and also with Flagler Beach too, with their officers. Civic engagement, we've had citywide collaboration. In fact, just the other day, last week, we hosted the National Day of Prayer here in the city of Bunnell, and we do several other things to try to provide that. And so together for Flagler County, we are proud to partner with Flagler County in serving its residents. Our church is committed to meeting both the spiritual and practical needs of our community, and we welcome the continued collaboration. We want to work with Flagler County. We're not some island unto itself. I understand that road, and forgive me for calling it a road, that driveway, it exists because we say this is county stuff. This is stuff for the county. And I want you to look over there and say, and that church right there, they're for the county, because that's what we are. Our name is called Flagler County Baptist Church, because this is where God's called us, and we are for this county, and we want to partner with the county. Now, there's a few other things, and there's some concerns, and I certainly understand about with the Armory, with its proximity. We were talking about also starting Mercy Reigns Ranch. I have the people in place. They're ready to go. They're chomping at the bit, no pun intended, to get this thing started here with Mercy Reigns Ranch, if we just have the location. And so we found this great location. We said it would work, and I said, but I got a problem. There's an armory going in. There are going to be gunshots. And the folks that I have that are the leadership team that are currently doing this in Volusia County, and we want to offer this in our county. This is not currently offered in our county. They said, right now, our horses are next door to a shooting range, and they hear gunfire every day, and it does not bother them at all. And I said, well, praise the Lord. That's wonderful. They said, nope, they just get used to it, and it's totally fine. And so it doesn't bother them. It doesn't bother me. But Mercy Reigns Ranch is a ministry of our church, but it's its own independent 501c3 organization. And Mercy Reigns is dedicated to providing safe, faith-centered environment grounded in Jesus Christ. We foster spiritual, emotional, and physical well-being by integrating biblical principles and transformative bond between humans and horses. We believe that every person is created in God's image and deserves love, care, and the opportunity to thrive. Through our programs, we aim to empower participants with overcoming challenges, build resilience, and deepen their connection with God and community. This is therapeutic riding. This is where we are taking mostly children, but you imagine a young child in a wheelchair. They would never be able to ride a horse, to touch a horse, to interact with a horse. But through Mercy Reigns Ranch, our trained professionals who are certified through the PATH agency are able to actually introduce children to this sort of thing. It helps them. You have a child with maybe with autism, and they say the interaction with the horses actually helps to stimulate a portion of their brain to help them to develop better and quicker. And so that's what this is about. We're able to do it with First Step voucher system, and then also through Medicaid, and then also through the VA. And so the VA hospital over in Gainesville area has told us, some representatives there said, as soon as you get this started, let us know, and we'll send you more veterans, and you know what to do with to help them overcome some of the PTSD and things like that. So there's lots of things. We want to get going, but we're ready. We just have to jump over a few hurdles here in the meantime. This tells you a little bit more about Mercy Reigns and what it actually does. He showed you a moment ago the potential site plan, and that is what we had in mind. Things are going to change because since we created this or had this created, we had our wetlands delineation done, and as he was mentioning, the wetlands is right over there where it says the arena on the bottom right-hand corner, so that's going to actually have to be relocated over to the left side where we're not using anything on the remaining acreage there. But otherwise, it pretty much gives you a good idea of what we are planning to do there. And here's what I told the sheriff. He and I are friends. I understand that he has his ideas and I have mine. But at the end of the day, we text one another. We're buddies. We're friends. And I told him, listen, Sheriff, I said, you have Justice Lane. That's yours. I said, but when I get in there, I'm going to put in my own little road to our church, and I'm going to call it Mercy Street. And Flagler County Baptist Church is where justice meets mercy. And that's what we need is something like that right over there. I love where it's located. I love, like I said, that it's in Bunnell. I work closely with them. I've talked to the the Bunnell planning, zoning, all of that, and they said, we have no problem having you there. We will be rip-roaring and ready to go if you can get access. And so that's all we're asking for is access. I know we had talked about coming through the Kelly property there, but in order to get to that house that's immediately to the south of our property, you have to go through one very narrow driveway that you can't get a truck down, and then you make a sharp turn. I mean, a truck pulling a trailer. You make a sharp turn and over a very small wild culvert, and you're now on someone else's land. You make another turn. You end up on someone else's land to come back over. Then you're finally on that land that you see right there, and it's a zig and it's a zag, and there's no way that anybody's going down there for church. That's not going to happen. It's impossible. And then, like we said, coming through the Haitian church property, I wish that they would listen to us and at least have the conversation, but that's not feasible. Coming down Justice Lane to me seems like the only access that we have to this landlocked parcel, and we sure would love to be able to have access to that, to be able to come in and out. I think you have there in the letter that I had given you, it should say a note to the county commissioners, the letter that I've given to you. It tells you a little bit about our church times and what the traffic would look like going in and out of there, and what and yes, there would be times when church lets out that there'd be a little bit of traffic, people coming in, people coming out, et cetera, et cetera. Throughout the week, you just imagine, a family, 2, 3 cars coming once every hour to drop off their kids to go horseback riding, for their lessons. But otherwise, on the weekend, it's the only time you're really going to see any substantial traffic, and so we won't be impeding any kind of flow of anybody going back to anywhere on Justice Lane.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, open it up for discussion with the commissioners.
I have questions.
Sure.
Well, I think ours is maybe for Mr. Mingle, and you may not know this. You said that it's a permit to build there would be permitted by City of Bunnell. Does Bunnell have a requirement to have a particular minimum amount of road footage deeded into their property?
I don't know their land development code. I do not know the answer.
Yeah,
to
I was
that.
trying to find that.
Yeah.
So like even for them to get a permit, do they have to have deeded road?
Yeah,
Do we have that at the county? I don't think so.
We have
Some
in our
counties
subdivision
have it.
regulations, we mention it, and then we do also allow, we refer to them as flag lots, and so you can also have a flag that provides access. But typical subdivision requirements discourage that, I think is how we read in our code right now.
But you still need an easement to have a flag lot.
Yeah, flag, ordinarily you're going to own that flag.
Okay,
And so
you
it
own
could-
the driveway.
You own that strip, or the panhandle. But it could be, residential development can occur off of an easement.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Is it possible to have an assessment to the church of a monthly fee or annual fee for road maintenance? Would that be something that would work?
That could be. I think if I'm the church, I'm going to come back and say, well, equity, what is Stuart Marchman providing is similar.
Well, Stuart Marchman can put their driveway on Hall Creek, or on
Understood.
Hall Creek. They don't have to be on Justice Lane.
Yes, sir.
So
704.01, is that specific, the common law way of necessity, is that specific to residential homes, or can it be any operation that you're operating to have to give you access through 704?
It can be any operation. There's a part of the statute specific to residential and agricultural uses. There's another part of the statute that's basically for anything.
Yeah. And so, and it is vague onto what, when you read 704.01, it's very vague onto what, like, doesn't really describe what the most efficient means of access would be.
There is a section that defines practicable. It's 704.03,
Okay.
and it is without the use of a bridge, a ferry, a turnpike road, embankment,
see
or
that.
substantial fill.
Still not enough. So I'm going to be honest with you, because when I read that statute, and there is some legalese in there that you could be the county could be sued for not providing that type of access, or the landowner that's not willing to provide access. I think I'm really looking to some sort of opinion maybe out of our legal on this, because there's a personal opinion, like, yes, I love Justice Lane and it should be used for whatever we'd like it to be, but that statute is very specific about having to provide.
My conclusion, and it's based upon the title work that Mr. Mengel did, so assuming that that's all correct, it would seem that they would need to get access through the church parcel to the west, because that is who cut them off from the road in like 1919 or some many decades ago. And the way the statute reads, it says that is to be their access unless it's not practical. And we look at it, we say, well, there's not a ton of fill that's going to be needed. There's no bridge. So it fits all those criteria. It's just that they're not getting responses from that landowner. Well, there are ways to get responses. They may have to engage an attorney.
Can I speak to that?
Hold on a sec. Hold on. Let's finish with questions first.
Oh, on the attorney thing. Okay.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Just wait until we get back to you, but go ahead.
I'm sorry, I don't know the rules and
That's right.
regulations here. What I was just going to mention and with him is that we have spoken to our attorneys, the National Center of Law and Liberty, and David Gibbs III is our attorney. We've talked to him about all this, and he said, Pastor, he says, you tell me what you want to do. He said, we can, if you want to sue the county for access, we can sue the county. He said, we'll probably win. And he says, or if you want to sue the Haitian church and go that way, he said, we can do that. He said, just depends on how much money you want to spend, is what he told us. And he says, because either way, he says, you're going to win no matter which direction we go. So that, I just thought you were asking about the attorney. That's what he told me. So whether or not that's how the outcome is, I'm just telling you what he told me. I'm not a suing guy. I'd rather talk to him.
He's talking about, Mr. Moylan was talking about getting your attorney involved with talking with the people who've cut you off. That's all.
He said he would be glad to send a strongly worded letter to either one first to get things rolling that way. So
which access is the closest point to a public highway?
Oh, well, right through the west. Just that's the most direct shot.
I would answer that by saying due west.
Due west,
Okay.
yeah.
That's okay.
How many lanes is Justin Lane?
Justice Lane is
One way going in and one way going out?
It's barely two. I think most of it doesn't have a center line, if I'm remembering right.
It doesn't.
It doesn't.
So
It's a rural road.
Yes, I'd be really even hesitant to answer the yes that way, but yes.
Kind of somewhat lane.
Yeah, if-
And that's going to be used by SMA, the sheriff, the prison, the fire area? No?
So
It's not a fire station, something over there?
yeah, I think that's right.
Tower?
Presently used by SMA, the mail intake facility will be accessed off of Old Hall Creek Road. I think it does have a secondary driveway onto Justice Lane, but primary access is going to be on Old Hall Creek Road that I'm remembering. Fire tower, you've got the storage, you've got the jail admin building, jail itself.
The National Guard is going to be there as well?
Florida State Guard, yes, ma'am.
How could that road contain all those people at any given time with emergency stuff or crisis stuff or criminal stuff? I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on there. It seems too narrow and unserviceable for everybody to use it. I think that's why they have it as a driveway type of thing rather than a road.
It's got a clear shoulder. It's got Pastor Hobbs is saying behind me, you can pass each other if you need to, and I think that's a correct statement. It's got a paved surface and it has a shoulder on each side that I think's well maintained.
Well, the grass
and
is a
passable.
shoulder for everybody, right? So I'm just wondering how wide it is, and because it doesn't look like it's. You look at Hawk Creek on this map and you see the width of it, and then I'm looking at this and it looks like it's a string of it. So it doesn't look like it's very thick or viable. And that's my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Carney?
Question. So How did it get the name Justice Lane if it's not a road?
We unfortunately or fortunately have named private roads, private easements. I can give you an example of several on the west side. I don't want to call them out right now, but it's for 911 access convenience.
And post office.
Suppose so. Yes, ma'am.
We've got them over.
Somebody's getting mail back there.
Yeah.
We've got them over in the island too, the outer range.
So we don't. Is this like the customer, the constituent that called me over on Old Dixie and said it's a road, it has a name, it's your road, it wasn't her road, it was the easement.
Probably very similar. Yes, ma'am. And I think this particular one got. If you're asking about the name, I need to answer that. One sheriff at some point. I didn't scour the minutes to see if we officially named it that way, and often we did not.
But we do maintain it to the level that it's passable, serviceable.
That's correct. Yes,
We
ma'am.
put sand down, we rake it, whatever we have to do to get it to. Obviously, for the sheriff, it meets the sheriff's need.
It is paved.
It's paved.
And so when a
Oh, it's
pothole,
paved.
yes,
Yeah, it's
Oh,
paved.
I'm sorry.
yeah.
Okay.
It's got a high aggregate count in the. It's not a. If you look at it, your typical. It's an older, like we used to when we would do the paved roads. You know, it's got a high rock content to it, and so it's not. If you look at, say, the work that's going on right now with US 1's resurfacing, that those are totally different pavement types as far as the asphalt surface that's on there.
Thank you. All right, I'll throw a couple comments out there. Appreciate your slideshow and your community involvement, but this is about more than just that. I mean, it's good to throw all that out there, and but as I see it, it's really not our responsibility to provide you access. It's the seller or the person in front of you that cut you off. As a private drive, I mean, we start dedicating access to it that is outside of, our master vision for the area. We start limiting ourselves. That road can be at that point. That road can be relocated anywhere we want to, in order to fit a site planning or people or a future vision. But once we start adding to that and committing other access, we're stuck. And I just go back to the fact that if you're purchasing this from somebody, then that, and I recognize the amount of due diligence you've done before you found there was an access issue. But again, that doesn't fall on us. That falls on the property seller to be able to sell you a parcel that has viable access, and having to rely on somebody else is not viable access. I appreciate you coming here, sure, but there's limitations to, once we start providing access outside of those functions that we determine are compatible and that the county wants to go with, it limits the use of the property, which I am adverse to limiting our options on the piece of parcel or the piece of property. I think it's premature to come back to us without doing some of the other options, either through the seller or through the property owner that's in front of you. And in order to see if this is a viable parcel from you, you're going to have to go through those options, in my opinion.
Sure.
So those are just a few things that I, after studying it for a little while.
Sure. The Justice Lane, to answer a question about the width of the road, I challenge anybody to drive down it, and you'll see that it is, they pass each other all day long. No one's going off the road and having to go on any shoulder whatsoever. It is definitely wide enough, and it's paved and wide enough for two cars easily to pass one another going in opposite directions. It's like a two-lane road for sure, wide enough for that. The issue is it's located inside the city limits of Bunnell. So Bunnell would be the one who would determine what can be built and what can't be built in that area. That's where you would go to get your permits from. But because, the county has deemed it to be a private driveway instead of a public road, now the county can determine what happens on it versus the city of Bunnell. And so that's where I'm coming from and saying, now they can say, well, we want this is our dream, this is what we want to happen on this road. And I say, well, the road was paid for by the taxpayers, by the people in the county. That's who owns the road. But if we just call it a private driveway, well, then we get to determine what goes on and what doesn't go on that driveway. And then the city of Bunnell doesn't get really to say, to give any permits or anything like that, because we're the ones determining it. And that's the angle. If you see, when you look at it from different angles, my angle, I come at it and I go, well, it's a road paid for by the county, but I understand they call it a driveway. But that's what I came with before, is to say, why don't we just go ahead and call it for what it is? If we have to move its ownership over to a different department of the county, to say, look, let's let the different department care for that road, make sure that it's kept in shape the way it is.
It's not a dedicated road. I mean, it's not surveyed. There's no right-of-way. It's not a road. It's a driveway. It is even though it's paved, it's not built to any DOT specifications. It's pretending to be a road. It looks like one, but it is a driveway without any right-of-way. And there's, if it was a dedicated right-of-way, it would be in that position going forward in the future. As there is no right-of-way, it can be moved and relocated anywhere within that parcel. But once you dedicate the right-of-way and make it whether it's a private road, there's plenty of dedicated private roads and public roads, but they have dedicated right-of-ways.
Mm-hmm. Understood. And so it is that. It's just one of those interesting situations where it's a private driveway, but yet Stuart Marchman is using it. It's a private driveway, yet people can go visit their loved ones all day long and have public access to it, and it's not parceled off. But I totally understand what you're saying. It's just one of those weird situations, so.
I think there's alternates. I think you have some time during your due diligence on this property to continue to find ways to gain access to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the only logical one other than that one would obviously be the property to the exact left of it. And so, like we said, we can go ahead and send them a strongly worded letter and see what they can do. But having a driveway to make it all the way to the church.
Your sellers should be motivated because they don't have much there unless they provide access to it. So the sellers of the parcel are the ones that are motivated to help you gain access to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because they just as easily as the other people have blocked you by trying to sell this without an easement.
Understood.
And then they're still here, so that's probably an easier route for you.
Understood. Okay. Well, I appreciate it.
That's just me. I'm just one.
I know. I appreciate the one.
My turn.
Yes, absolutely.
No, So I'm torn and conflicted. I would have liked to have known whether or not you even can build if you're required to have deeded road access to even build in there, but I don't know that. So, and I'm going to rely, and I love you, Mr. Hobbs. I'm going to rely on legal, and I'm going to rely on Adam, because I think you're going to find that that right of way by necessity is probably going to run with the landowner who's closest to the public highway, where he's going to have to provide it. I think you're going to find that, and not us. But that's if you find it different. But I think that's what you're going to find, is it really is going to have to be them that provides it. So,
and I think collectively, having had time to meet with you, I don't know what your due diligence time period is, but somebody may come up with a really ingenious solution for you after having an opportunity to, look at this. So there still may be a creative option. I don't know what that is, but we have some bright minds that can look at this. And
sure. Well, I appreciate that. We can move forward that direction for sure.
Yeah.
Maybe you could talk to Stuart Marchman. Get access through their
They
their
don't
process.
touch each other, unfortunately. We're not adjacent to them. We're just adjacent to the county's property on the north and the east and the south. No, just the north and east, yeah. And then the rest is private. So.
So this is still kind of an open door in my mind. Again, I don't know whether there's consensus from the board to do anything other than to keep it open and try and help you problem solve.
I appreciate that.
Is that okay? Just to
No,
keep
and I think there's just maybe we can get a memo out of legal, the more they can look into it and just confirm it regards around 704.01 and what Bunnell would be willing to do, even build if they don't require. Because I'd like to know that. Do they require a dedicated road? So I guess there's a little bit of unanswered stuff, but I'm hoping that you're able to solve it. I think you're going to find the onus is on.
From you, they would offer all the permits that we needed as long as we had the easement from you. They sent us back to you.
Yeah.
Said get that from them, and we'll give you all the permits you need to build. So they were ready to go. Just needed an easement, and there's 400 foot of frontage to Justice Loop driveway.
So maybe Sean just take that back with legal and look at 704.01 and tell us if we're required, because certainly don't want to open ourselves up to a lawsuit either, just,
We can do that.
So we will continue with some additional clarification, legal research, and
Sure.
Any other guidance from up here?
No, let's keep it open.
What's that? They're in Edgewater, Volusia County.
Oh, they're in Volusia?
Yeah,
I just see future home, and I'm wondering where they're living now.
And they're
I'm
in
relocation
Volusia. You can go over
specialist.
there and pet them in Volusia County, and then they'll be moving over this way, and with part of the staff that's over
And
there
how
too.
many rounds of therapy do they get there? Or is that a paid service, or is that a donation service, or how does
So
that work?
it's a 501c3, but it is funded through Step Up for Students and through Medicaid and through the
different
VA.
organizations.
So it's funded so that we could keep the thing operational.
Okay.
But
Just
yeah,
curious on that.
yeah, it's a pretty cool thing though.
All right,
It's good
thank
for
you.
the kids. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate your time. I really do. All right.
Thank you to your family for joining you too. All right. We're going to do, next item is a beach funding. Let me back up and just, we've only got 2 items on here, so wanted to see if there was any public comment on the Justice Lane discussion. And then I'll move on. All right, seeing none, we'll go back. On the beach funding and budget discussion, Ms. Petito.
It'll take just a minute. I think we're going to pull up the presentation.
Captain.
I think it might be a network issue.
Sorry, we're having network issues. I got the hourglass of spinny. Be right there.
Carlos, we're going to call for a 5-minute break. If that's okay.
Very good.
We'll come
Thank
back
you.
at 5. Thanks. I'm going down this way.
All right, here we go. All right, we'll call the meeting back to order.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you all for being here. This meeting was requested by the board as a follow-up to continue our discussions on budget guidance, specifically as it relates to funding options for some long-term master plans. A key focus today is going to be reaching a consensus on a path forward for the beach management plan, which remains a critical component of our broader strategic and infrastructure goals. We look forward to your input and direction as we work to align funding strategies with the board's priorities. This is a look at the agenda for today's pre-budget discussions. We'll go over each one of these a little bit in more detail. So back on February 10th, when we held the meeting to discuss the board's priorities for development of the budget, we had received some guidance in the way of process and policies, priorities that the board wanted us to go over. So I'm going to go over these a little bit more just to ensure that we're aligned as we move forward with the creation of the budget. So this looks familiar. This is from our meeting that we had back on February 10th, and this was based on guidance and direction from the board. Based on making sure that we're aligned with our strategic plan and our vision as we grow our community. We talked about economic impacts and financial feasibility, talked about leveraging available sources of funding, resource optimization, and effective financial planning. And then this was the budget guidance that was received at that same meeting, again, aligned with our strategic plan. It would have a focus on maintaining fiscal responsibility while supporting key priorities that drive long-term community benefit. We were looking at a flat or reduced millage rate. We were aiming to achieve a balanced budget that reflects the prudent stewardship of public funds. Our key funding priorities were going to have a focus on beach management and the funding of that plan, as well as employee retention and merit pay. We talked about controlling expenditures, holding the line, which would involve restricting any new operational or program spending unless it was clearly justified or it had an offsetting revenue source. We talked about evaluating our capital projects through an evaluation of any proposed and ongoing capital needs, things that were critical to community safety, infrastructure, resilience, and looking at items that had been part of our deferred maintenance. And then we were continuing to protect and enhance the quality of life while also ensuring that we had financial stability. So that's the guidance that we had received back in February. Just a recap, this is fiscal year 25's breakdown of the general fund. So you have $180.7 million of total revenue, but only $123.4 million actually comes from your ad valorem property tax. So when you look at how that's broken out, you've got your constitutionals at $62.2 million, followed by the functions of the Board of County Commission, or basically all county functions, at $60.5 million, your reserves at $41 million, your non-departmental, which is your debt service, the funding that you would hand back for CRAs, interfund transfers, pooled expenditures, medical examiner's office, or value adjustment board. That's what you have in your non-departmental. The reserves, I don't think I mentioned it, but that $41 million, that's your reserve for future use. That's your 2/12, what we're trying to get at for a 3/12, your contingency, which is 5%, as well as the plans that we set in place for fire equipment and the funding that we need to maintain for personnel services. We have a leave liability requirement to have a certain amount on the book, so that's covered there in your reserves. So those reserves are somewhat restricted in nature, with the exception of maybe contingency, which is anticipated to be used throughout the year and then replenished at the end of the year. And then when you look at your insurance, that is the cost of your property insurance, not our health insurance fund, but your property insurance. You may recall that we switched to a self-insured model a couple years ago. I'll probably go over that on another slide coming up. So during the budget planning process and also throughout the year, so this isn't something that we do once a year, But over the past several years, this process has been ongoing. We implement recommendations that aim to reduce costs or increase efficiencies. So some of these you may recognize, but these are cost-saving measures or efficiency recommendations that are listed here, starting with we outsource custodial and grounds maintenance to save money. We entered into a cooperative fuel purchase agreement so that our buying power is much better with Volusia County and the school system. We've made plan design changes to healthcare to, kind of cut some of that rising healthcare cost. We've also created and expanded the employee health clinic for the same reason, because we are self-funded for our health insurance. We've used energy management systems like your evening setbacks, CO2 sensors, putting all of our lights and stuff on timers. All of these things lead to potential savings. I mentioned the self-insured property under $1 million. We did that 2 years ago. This year, what we're adding is the building contents and things that are placed in the open. When we talked previously about our property insurance, you may recall over the last 5 years, we've spent over $7 million in property insurance, but we've only had about $150,000 in claims. So as we can start getting self-funded on our property insurance, just like we are on our health insurance, we assume the risk for that exposure. And we are looking at a stop-loss policy that could fill that gap. But it is a way to save money. Recently, we were able to obtain some procurement software. By doing so, we were able to actually eliminate one of our FTE positions. We were then able to reallocate that person to fulfill a role in a department where there was need for staff training and development. So that position was moved over to human resources. The library went to a self-checkout model, similar to what you'd see at like a grocery store or Walmart, just to help reduce the cost of having staff. Using the drone featured with LiDAR technology, it's something that we were able to do as a cost saving so that we didn't have to pay an outside consultant. We were able to refinance our debt, improve our bond rating, which in the long run yields a better interest rate on anything we're financing. Things that we do in-house that others don't. We handle all of our own FEMA recovery. Many times communities hire a consultant to come in and do that. We don't. We do it ourselves to save money. We also handled the CARES Act and the ARPA funding in-house, where we were able to handle those programs and give funding back to the community. Many agencies do contract all that work out at a cost. We seek and obtain grants to help offset operating costs, and we use volunteers in probably more than half of our departments. So there's things that we do on a regular basis to help minimize the costs that maybe, I know we have 2 new commissioners, maybe they're not fully aware of the initiatives that we've undertaken over the years. As I said, this is not a one and done. We look at this every year to make sure that we're doing things effective and efficient and being good stewards of the taxpayer dollars. So I wanted to draw your attention to the long-term master plan. Some of these were actually underway or adopted prior to our 2 new board members. You got a little glimpse of some of the transportation road work program costs that we have. But starting with the strategic plan, it was adopted in 2022. It's updated annually. It's one thing to have a plan, but you need to have resources in the way of funding and staff to actually implement those initiatives. Our beach management plan was adopted in 2023, and that's really the larger discussion for today. You also have a stormwater master plan that was adopted in 2024. And then the capital improvement, or CIP, it's adopted annually as kind of like a 5-year plan, but we only allocate funding for 1 year. And then your transportation road network, which is the plan that we work on. It's a 5-year plan with FDOT. Typically, we get scrap and SCOP funding to cover that. And then what they're working on now is a pavement preservation. You saw a glimpse of that last year, but they will be working on that and anticipate that to be done next year. So I think really over the past few years, it's been really encouraging to see our organization shift from being a reactive approach to being more proactive and having a strategic focus. So now we're planning ahead in key areas, but it does require funding. We recognize that grants are limited and can only help so much, so the next step is really ensuring that we have some local funding available to further those actions and deliver some meaningful results. Right now, we do not use any ad valorem tax dollars to support any of these programs, so just keep that in mind. So one of the items that we had talked about previously, the county currently has a local option half-cent sales tax. This went into effect in 2012. It's a 20-year term, so it expires in 2032. Even though the county does adopt this through ordinance, every city benefits from it. They all get their proportionate share based on population. One of the things that we have used it for is things related to public safety, infrastructure, including beaches. Right now, we get about 9.9 million annually, and our portion's about 4.4. When we talk about the historical use of the half-cent sales tax, I was just going back looking at fiscal year 22 through 25. What we have is primarily public safety, utilizing the bulk of the funding for the last few years. Beach management did get some funding in the current year at $3 million. And then roadway projects, we did put some in there for an FDOT grant match. And I also wanted to mention that in fiscal year 25, or the current year, we set aside $1 million, but it's not from half cent, it actually was from general fund. So they haven't used it. It sits in reserves in case there's a shortfall on any of their FDOT contracts. What we were looking at internally for fiscal year 26, the proposed current half-cent sales tax, this is the makeup of how that would be utilized. We've got about 1.1 million being used in public safety for fire rescue, 2 million allocated to beach management, and then another million would round it out for our roadway projects. And that's what we were anticipating spending it on for fiscal year 26, but we are looking for direction from the board. So when we look at the beach management plan, potential funding opportunities, there are various options to consider. This is a list of some of those that we've shared previously. More than likely, it'll have to come from a few of these sources, but it would involve tourist development tax, MSBU for the barrier island. We also talked about using a small portion of dedicated millage to cover the public parks that exist on the barrier island. And then we talked about the utilization of half-cent sales tax. We do go after grants, and we will continue to do that. And then providing if we had any emergency response or needed supplemental disaster recovery funds, those would come in the way of FEMA or the state's emergency management department. But even with those two, it's not 100%. We would still have to identify a local match and where that money would come from. So this table should look familiar. Today I'll outline the potential funding strategy which had been shared for the initial construction of the beach and dune system. This has taken shape over the past year through ongoing input from the board, other elected officials, residents, and a wide range of stakeholders. This is not my personal proposal, but rather a reflection of evolving discussions, priorities, and feedback that we've received throughout the planning process. This was approved by this board as Flagler County's potential path forward. It was shared with the cities as requested by the board. This would utilize a new half-cent sales tax, and this would complete the construction of the entire 18 miles of coastline. So just going top to bottom, it has the new half-cent sales tax. It has a portion of the TDC capital funds. It also has the dedicated funding out of TDC for the beach. It does include that dedicated millage for public parks. We also have a potential TDC grant to go after the additional money that remains in the capital program. We also have some grant opportunities through the HRR, which is a hurricane recovery grant. And then you have the potential LGFR, which is another grant opportunity, which is for local government funding, reimbursement for grants. And then you approved the grant, which was the 25 FL1, which came out of DEP for the $4.4 million. And then we have funding that would come from FDOT for seawall, sand placement in front of the seawall. There is an opportunity there to continue to work with them. And then in looking at the projects we have slated for this year coming up, you have a carryover of your $5 million. You'll have a portion of it. So you'll have $1.55 million that will carry over. You may see in fiscal year 27 that in the line item for that LGFR ongoing grant, that's the local government funding reimbursement. That 3.45 is what we would be spending this year out of your money that you allocated. It's a reimbursement-based grant, so we could seek reimbursement in 27 for funding that you're spending this year. So it's not a total loss of the $5 million, it's a combination of the two. And then so that kind of rounds it out where you're able to come up with the cost for the initial construction over a 3-year period. And then in addition to the initial construction, this is the potential approach for funding the ongoing beach and dune nourishment. This strategy reflects evolving discussions, again, that have taken place over the last year with the board, other elected leaders, residents, key stakeholders. It's not a fixed proposal, but rather framework shaped by shared priorities and long-term sustainability goals. As part of this approach, staff will continue to actively pursue grants and partnership funding from the state of Florida to help reduce the financial burden on local resources. Additionally, following named events, we will continue to go after Cat G and Cat B funding just to further reduce that local cost. These commitment levels will have to be evaluated annually to ensure that we have necessary funding available when we need it. But this is just kind of, again, just showing you the framework. And then this would complete the ongoing local funding requirement of the entire 18 miles from county line to county line. So we have consideration of an additional ½ cent as part of our continued efforts to advance the beach management plan and to address some broader infrastructure needs. Staff has developed a funding scenario that includes the potential use of an additional local option ½ cent sales tax. This concept is one that emerged over the past year through discussions with this board, municipalities, and community stakeholders as we continue to look for some sustainable ways to fund long-term priorities. What this would allow, if you were to approve an additional ½ cent, it would allow the current ½ cent for the first 3 years, so about $2.1 million annually would go into the beach program, and that would leave a remaining roughly about $2.5 million for other projects. The other projects are your roads, your stormwater, your deferred capital, and things like that. And then in 2029, 100% of the current would be available to be moved over for those deferred long-term plans. So in 2029, after 3 years, you would then have full access to the current ½ cent while still pledging the new, and the new would go towards the beach, and then this would move over for those long-term. The thought is that as we continue to develop ways to reduce the local cost on the beach, it's an opportunity to move some of that other funding over to those long-term projects. So following the discussion and stakeholder input, the consensus approach kind of reflected phased and balanced use of existing resources. We have in front of you 3 options we're trying to build consensus on, kind of creating a path forward. These are options to consider. Current plan, which is the funding of the entire coastline of 18.1 miles. This would allocate approximately $2.1 million annually from the existing ½ cent for the first 3 years to support the initial construction and early implementation. After that, funding would transition out with the intent to utilize the new half-cent sales tax as a funding source for ongoing needs. This would free up the existing half-cent to then be applied to existing long-term plans that lack a funding source. We would continue to go after grants and state funding to further reduce the costs at the local level to free up more money towards those existing long-term plans. Option B would be to move forward only in the unincorporated beach area, the 10-plus miles. This would sustain a dedicated allocation of about $3 million annually from the existing half-cent sales tax. It would be somewhat indefinitely or until we can get to a point that we're not having to put as much money into the renourishment. But to support long-term beach and dune maintenance and capital needs, this would just be in the unincorporated. This approach for the unincorporated really doesn't allow as much money to be applied to the ongoing long-term plans that you have for stormwater, roads, and capital. So it kind of takes the bulk of the money and doesn't really provide you with anything for those plans that lack funding. And then the other approach, C, would be an alternative, more of a reactive approach. So should a no proactive funding strategy be pursued, the county would remain in a reactive posture, only identifying local match funds as needed during post-storm recovery, resulting in a higher risk and uncertainty for timely response and recovery. But that is an option. And then really just looking at the next steps, I think that there's a great deal of work left for staff to complete. Today is really looking for guidance on the next steps, the consensus moving forward. And based on that, we'll determine staff's next work ahead of them. That really concludes the presentation that I have. So.
We turn that back on. Thank you. Again, this is really just for the different points. We want to get some conversation about what's going on here. Again, the plan is to get on the workshop for City of Palm Coast with the ILA to talk about their thoughts, and also would be to identify a side goal would be for them to identify some priority projects that they would be able to fund with their additional revenue from the half penny. I think it's important to kind of see the whole picture, and from the city's perspective, would that be quickly funding the YMCA? Would it be quickly being able to allocate funds to the animal shelter or animal concerns? I think as we continue, hopefully we'll have an opportunity to bring that to the city, so they will have an opportunity to provide guidance on the ILA, and come to a consensus on the funding split, and then hopefully have a discussion about things that they could utilize their allocation for. I know we've chewed on these numbers for a long time, so if there's discrepancies or if there's more conversation you want to have on the three options that were identified, right? Do we want to continue looking? We've got basically another month, a month and a half, to be able to chew on the beach funding plan until we have to set guidance for the budget. So at some point, we do have to give staff guidance so they can complete their budget for the next fiscal year. But we do have about a month and a half to continue working on the beach funding plan collectively. And as a backup, for some reason, if there was no consensus to keep working on this, right, at the end of the month and a half, just so we understand, we would have to give guidance to, do we want to do the unincorporated beach plan or the alternative or reactive approach? And just so we all understand the implications of each of those. So it was an opportunity to ask questions about what does the future look like for each of those plans, or what is the funding for our deferred projects what does that look like with each of the options? Because we're at the point where we're working on budget and we're working on finalizing the beach. And I think it was at this time we could have a conversation about how one affects the other, or how the beach plan, depending on how we go, affects the budget for 26 and forward. So just again, if you've got some guidance for this, for Miss Petito, if there's not much guidance, then she'll go to the city in a week or so, I think on the 13th, to the workshop, have that discussion with the city about their consensus on the funding formula and their priority projects for the halfpenny. And we can have that same discussion with City of Bunnell. It's not as big a number, but it's still, they still have to go to the City of Bunnell as well. But I know there's still options. I've had, there's lots of thoughts, so share thoughts of different strategies, but I know there's still a lot of strategies that are in the air about specific to the halfpenny. Is it, do we put some language in there about the term or the length of the halfpenny, and then bring it back to when it expires, that it goes to referendum? There's lots of things that we can do as far as the halfpenny is concerned about the length of time and what that looks like when it expires, because we have the ability to work on that. So that we could shorten the time. It could be, right, initially it looks like 20 years, but we could shorten that time, which would be an evaluation period, if you would. It could expire. It could be renewed. So there's lots of different things to look at.
Chair, are you saying in terms of with the halfpenny proposing, there's a possibility we could propose it out to referendum in 26 with terms on it and specific projects? Or is that an option? Is that we're saying maybe that could be an option?
I think if you look at terms, right, if there was guidance, maybe the guidance is to look at terms and have staff come back with what does that look like in future budget years. So if we did a short-term one, what does that look like now and at the expiration, so that they can put together give you an idea of what that looks like. Okay. Right, we've heard a lot, right? We talked about the chatter in Tallahassee, and chatter in Tallahassee has been all over the place. But they have looked at at one point TDC tax was on the table, and they were going to shorten it. So I didn't want to just be exclusive to one train of thought. There's lots of thoughts about being responsive to the community and bringing these things back on a more frequent basis, which I don't want to exclude. I think that's an option for us. And I think to our benefit, anytime we have the ability to demonstrate our fiscal responsibility with funds that are given to us, we should take those opportunities and be able to, when it does come up for renewal, be able to demonstrate that. But
well, don't we have one coming up for renewal?
32.
32.
Environmentally sensitive land referendum comes up for renewal.
The halfpenny, existing halfpenny is 32, and when's the ESL? 28.
28. 29, 30, 31, 32. So I was kind of thinking I was going to get a ESL program presentation today based on a couple of meetings ago agenda item on ESL. I'm not saying ESL is not warranted. I'm not saying that. I watched a 2-hour presentation on, I told you that at the last meeting, on the wildlife corridor. I mean, I don't know that everything we have our access to is being used the way it's supposed to be used. I was very much looking forward to that presentation because I think we have an opportunity to educate through a referendum. I know that one would have to sunset before you went to a second the same half-cent going to the beach fund, but we would have time to educate and to get people to referendum in, which would be a really long-term solution to our problem instead of waiting for the 2032 when this half-cent tax may sunset or may not sunset. So I would just like, I did have an email with Sean for him to explain to me the process and how it works. I would like to see some information on the ESL. I would like to see how we're doing, where it's going. Maybe the county's ready. Maybe we have exhausted our search for ESL. I don't know what it looks like. So that is just one of those alternatives that keeps spinning around for me. I think we need to just dive into it a little. Bring it up, talk about it. It's only 2 years away, so, right? We're going to have to talk about it at some point. I say we have the conversation now and make an effort to either bring that to referendum. If that doesn't pass referendum, then I would be much open to an additional half-cent. But I just want to see what's spinning out there before. Let's face it, guys. We could spend every single dime that we could raise. I mean, we all know that. We are deficit on stormwater. We're deficit on roads. But we need to keep the pots in separate pots. I also feel that, and this is nothing to any, well, there's a lot of zeros on that spreadsheet that I believe have real numbers assigned to them. So let me just take you to page 7. Let me take you to exploring a path forwards funding strategies. This is for the maintenance and renourishment. So I have no problem leaving a box that says grant opportunities vacant if I had no history, but we have clear history of FDEP, the state parks. Why are we showing TBD when we just got 4.4 million for the hammock? Are we saying in this graph that the State Department of Environmental Protection, who owns close to 2 miles of their own beach, is going to shut us off? Are we going to get shut off? I can't believe that. I also can't believe that FDOT, where it says FDOT seawall, is not negotiable. We haven't even gone to the table with them. And then under the Cat G, we're waiting on millions of dollars that we've already spent to carry over. That carryover is going to happen. You're right. I get this. The state can shut us off at any minute, and I can live with that, except I believe that we're looking for a total Flagler County fund to fund this when I don't think that's reality. You have one hit in Flagler Beach on that Army Corps project, and we have zero maintenance because it's all done. But we don't have any scenarios worked into this spreadsheet. We also have to look at, and I don't think it's going to impact it, especially after listening to the tourism debacle the other day. There's not enough money to even worry about how much of it can be used with Fund 1109 and 1111. There's just not enough money there to worry about that. But we do have some areas where we're going to have to prove that there was public access. I'm not saying it's not a public beach. Don't hear that. I know it's a public beach, but there may be some issues with public access. So there's another diagram out there that we have received. Is there a chance in the future that the HOA, the Hammock Dunes HOA, is going to step up and do some maintenance? Is there something in the future? There's nothing built into this except Flagler County is going to take complete responsibility of 100% of the maintenance and not 100% of the construction. Don't hear that. Sorry about that. But I just think I think we're overtaxing. I think this plan, I think that Reach 4 is way off target. They broke it out for me into Reach 2, they meaning Ainsley, Reach 2, 3, and 4. I'm doing some more research on that. Again, am I sitting here and able to pick apart staff numbers? I can't. I know that there's other ways, and this spreadsheet can change. Look at your spreadsheet under initial construction. There are gaps. So this spreadsheet at the bottom, construction, does not make any sense to me. 14 million, 14 million, 14 million equals 42. There's gaps. So how do we get, I don't know. I'm having a really, really hard time with this, and I'm an accountant. So I'm just going to stop. Thanks.
Chair, if I could, maybe I can provide some clarity with the first one. So we'll start with this one. So this was for the ongoing maintenance, and so you'll notice where it says TBD in those columns. In years 26, 27, and 28, we're going to be focusing on this, so we can't double dip those grants and that funding from the state. So that's why it's not showing up in those years. If we were to get additional funding and we can negotiate something a little bit higher with FDOT or DEP, certainly we could either show it here on the initial construction or we can fill in where it says TBD. Because we haven't finalized discussions with those two state agencies, we didn't want to go ahead and put it on there. What we were told is that the state parks through DEP, they do not put program funding in their budget. They only put it in there when we ask for it. Because we don't know the condition of the beach when we actually go to start doing the ongoing maintenance, we don't know what we're going to be asking for. If we don't have a storm, then we don't need their money. So that's why there's a lot of uncertainty with the beach. It is very fluid. Things change. The CAT-G, that would be funding that we got if we got a storm in that year. We don't know because we're not there yet in 26, 27 in these years. But we will go after every grant opportunity that we can go after. I know that you had mentioned about the HOAs. Right now, the folks that live in those HOA communities pay money to the HOA, and then the HOA uses those funds to pay us. Well, that's going to go away because we're introducing the MSBU. So in many cases, they may be paying more in an MSBU than they were paying into their HOA, but it's still collecting money from the same people. And it may end up being that you're actually collecting more because the HOAs would only levy that cost to the property owners when needed, where here you're getting it recurring every year, so that way you have them paying into it. So I just wanted to kind of explain a little bit of that. I know even on this one, when you look at the total needed, you can see that top part of this graph or chart is how much you're collecting annually. What we tried to show at the bottom where you have that gap and it's in red, it's just showing you the amount of money. It totals the same amount that you're collecting in 6 years. We just broke it up into increments, taking that $72 million over the 6 years. That's how much you would have to collect if everything was equalized. You'd have to get that $12 million. You're building up for something that is going to be needed in 6 years. So you see where it's a little bit of a gap the first 3 years, but then it levels out and it turns to black. And then at year 6, you have all the money that you need. It's because as the values change, you're ramping up, you're paying more the closer you get to the project being. It's the same case on this one. These are, the grant opportunities that we have or that we know we're going to be eligible for. We've already received notification or phone calls. But the same thing in this one where you see how you're real heavy in 26 and you're black, you're about 8.2 million to the good. But then in the out year, so that one you kind of front loaded it and then you see the deficit as it moves on. But at the end, you still have the 42 million in year 3. So it's just kind of, I don't know if that makes sense. I just wanted to explain. I don't know if I missed anything.
No, the money being front-loaded is really what it's showing. You've got more at the beginning, and then you're dipping into it as you move forward.
Yeah.
But yet, no comment on the environmentally sensitive land half-cent.
Well, what do you want to do? I mean, all that information's available. If you need background information on the ESL, what they've spent it for, how much we collect each year.
I have all that.
Okay.
Yeah. Is that an option?
An option for what? That's in 28. So the current plan shows this taking effect with a vote this year, not waiting for 28. So I think there's an, yes, Ms. Petito.
And I apologize because it was scheduled to come back today, but we had a scheduling issue with North Florida and our environmentally sensitive lands. So both of them will be on your next May agenda. But I did want to clarify that the ESL is a dedicated millage. It's based on property values. It's not a half cent. So it's two different things. It's just dedicated millage that comes up in a couple of years.
And
we can dedicate millage. I mean,
we can do it.
We can do whatever we want with the money. We can stop collecting it or stop allocating it. Correct?
Sure.
The voters voted that ESL in. They did that with a referendum. We can't mess with that.
No, but we can ask for it to be done again as a beach, right?
Well, it would be new. It wouldn't be the same,
Correct.
but it would be new.
I just said that. We would go through the marketing. We would go through the education. We could go through all that when in reality, they were already paying it for the last 20 years.
Right.
So it would just be a continuation of a debt that they were, or a tax that they were already paying.
Commissioner Pennington.
So just because I know they're looking for direction, so this is just my thoughts on it is I don't think do nothing's not an option this year. If we can't come together as a board on the half cent, then I think my opinion, it's just opinion for myself, is that we go ahead with a look at the unincorporated beach plan. And while we've notified the state on the half penny, perhaps we should draft some sort of plan to put the half penny on the 2026 referendum for items that we know need funding. And that could include the beach or some creative, stormwater, road, beach. It can time out, to your point, in a certain year. And then when 2028 comes around, if whatever board is here wants to have that discussion about ESL sunsetting, or if maybe the hope is that we onboard more projects that help the tax base. But I don't think do nothing is an answer, but I think we continue behind also working the unincorporated plan as well, so that something starts this year. That's just my. I didn't want someone to think I wanted to close I don't want to close the door on the beach. I just want to have a plan for the beach. Sorry.
I really want to.
I asked about environmentally sensitive land about a month ago. I want to vet every opportunity we can make to fund what we need without raising a half a cent tax. I just don't want to raise taxes. I just don't. I said I would hold the line. I want to hold the line. People are not willing to pay more taxes for something that they're not living on. Or I get calls. I get people telling me things that they are not happy about it. If we can find We have so many projects. We have about 30 projects in process. So I don't know how we can allocate from one thing to the other thing. To me, the beach is environmentally sensitive. Maybe it's just not the land part of it. I don't know why that can't be used for that either. So I've been told it could. We've decided that it's not, but we keep going around. No, I don't want a 0.5 cent sales tax for anybody. Not at this point. Not when we're supposed to be doging. Let's cut back some other things and let's make it happen. That's just my opinion. Whatever it takes, we should do it.
I don't want to focus on the ESL. I think we've beaten that up. And again, probably the most universally acknowledged effort that people tax themselves for is land preservation, and whether we tweak that when it comes up time, or we have some public meetings. I think when people know that we're thinking about changing that, you'll get some pretty packed houses in here.
I don't want to dispute what my thoughts are, but
no, I'm not trying to dispute your thoughts. Okay. I'm just speaking mine.
I understand. I just want everybody to understand. We've just taken on a lot of money and used it for environmentally sensitive lands on the western side of the county, and now we're dealing with the east side, and we haven't preserved stuff for that. So now we're trying to catch up with it. Is that the point?
No, not at all.
Okay. I just didn't know.
Yeah, no, we can't. The construction and the maintenance of the beach, you can't use that fund, so we can't mix funds. It's only for purchase, and the few pieces of beach land that we targeted, one was just south of the Solitude Project in the Hammock, and that was purchased by the state. The owners went to the state instead of through us. So the very few pieces, and we're still looking at parcels that can be purchased on the beach for public access. So those are still out there, but the language in the referendum is clear. And it can't be used for construction or maintenance.
That's not my point.
No,
I don't want to use that money. There's $20 million in there. I want to spend it. I want to do what we're supposed to do with it.
No,
I'm just talking about once that sunsets, we're going to have to make a decision either way. And Andy, you and I will be sitting up here. It's in 2 years. Mm-hmm. So it is an option. I asked for options, and I did not get one option. I got exactly what you're looking at is a bigger spreadsheet, and I got TBDs on it. So I don't know what the options are. How about this one? Now, this is going to be really popular. I'm going to do it. I'm going to say it. We had a presentation with the joint board in Palm Coast, and the sheriff sat here and told us that we were very generous to Palm Coast because they're underpaying for sheriff services. How about we equal up with Palm Coast? How about we give Palm Coast 2 years over the next contracts to even up? There's some money. Our general fund was able to find $9 million to build the Nexus Center. They did it over 2 years. It's in the funding notes. It was funded by the general fund. How did they find $9 million in 2 years to build the Nexus Center?
It was the board's priority at the time.
Correct. So we're going to have to do it the same. However they did that, we're going to have to do that for the beach.
Right, but the numbers are different. So, I mean, you're not going to save. We're talking $12 million. Once we get through with construction, mm-hmm. which is $42 million, not just 10, but 42. Mm-hmm. And those construction needs are immediate. So we've got residences and that need as quick a relief on the beach, so we can construct those areas and then start to go into maintenance. So there's areas that we need to front the money over the next 3 years. It's not going to be a multiple-year project. So it's
Like I
apples
say,
and
there's
oranges.
always
But
reasons.
at the time,
Okay. All
at the
right.
time, that commission, that was the direction, and so if we give them guidance on the direction, staff will make it happen.
Find the money, right?
As much as they can from our budget until it's not there. And they've come to us saying, we can't save our way. We can't doge our way to 42 million in the next 3 years. So I think they're looking for options. If anybody had a plan to raise 42 million in the next 3 years, they would like to see that. And then once that's done, we only need 12 million a year. So it's, Ms. Petito?
I just wanted to clarify that the Nexus Center, when we were working towards that, a large chunk of it came through ARPA for lost revenue. So a large portion of it that was part of that came from ARPA, not us cutting out of our budget. And then I know that Holly was successful in getting a grant for about $4 million. So it frees up about $4 million of the original general revenue that had been part of that project to free it up for the fire station. That'll be part of your fiscal year 26 plan for Corona. So I just wanted to clarify, it wasn't us saving money over a 2-year period. It actually had come from ARPA as lost revenue.
Could you please let everybody know what ARPA is?
ARPA is the American Rescue Plan that came from the federal government. It followed up after
during
the
the COVID
coronavirus. Yep.
So that was spent on a building?
No, not completely. We had received, off the top of my head, I don't remember how much we got, but it was used for expanding broadband, water, sewer, infrastructure projects. There was a small portion that was kept for an allowable amount of lost revenue that we would have incurred that year due to COVID.
Okay, so I have to go back to what I've come up again and again is this started in 2016, 17. So that ARPA money was not used towards this at all, right? There was nothing reserved for this at all with that ARPA money, correct?
Are you referring to the Nexus Center starting in
No, I'm
2016?
talking about the
or-
coastal...
Beach.
The beach. I'm sorry, talking about the beach plan.
No, but essentially it freed up money that we were able to put towards it for some of the design and stuff like that. But it's not through ARPA.
We're
You
still talking
had
about the Nexus Center or the beach?
for the beach, right? So
Okay.
the beach,
The design.
Well, on the beach, you have to have engineering and
Okay, I didn't know
design
what
and
you meant
stuff
by
like
design.
that.
Okay.
But the county did invest some money early on, but you had restrictions with the way the ARPA funding could be used. It wasn't like broad-based that you could just use it for putting sand on the beach. Like it had to have a correlation back to the reason why it existed. So that's why it typically was tied to sewer, water, broadband connectivity, and things like that. We had certain projects that we had to go
But
through.
not infrastructure.
Well, some water
some,
sewer
yeah.
was available. It was
And the
allowable.
beach is not part of the infrastructure?
Only some infrastructure. It was pretty specific.
Oh, okay. I wasn't here.
Right.
So, rather than argue, or because we're so far apart, probably ideology wise, and rather than turn into our other boards, I think that we give two clear directions, and I know that one is the full 18, and we have the unincorporated project that we're probably closer to getting going than one over the other. But we still have the ability to put the half penny out to referendum in 26. If we know we can't get there this year, we can test the water to see how people feel by doing that. And we can all make a pledge here to do our best to educate the public on it and cover a swath of whatever we need to do for all municipalities, and keep working to the 18-mile plan as we onboard more tax revenue and other streams. Keep workshopping it, keep going, but start with the unincorporated now. it's not a perfect solution. And I would, I know everybody wants to see the 18, but, we do our best, and we all have different constituents that talk to us. And, we can put the half penny out. We can put it out there. Put it out, wordsmith it, time limit it, do whatever you think you need to do with it. At least you get an answer that way if you can't get consensus out of the board for it. And at least you have the beach going. At least for the unincorporated at the time. But people are looking for us. I've been here, and I feel bad, and I apologize, but I got the same problems, and the half penny would be, great out there as well.
But the problem with the referendum, I think, is not what they want. Because they want the Palm Coast part. They want, yeah. But everybody I don't think the equation even adds up if you don't have the Palm Coast part.
If you do the unincorporated, you might get there. For at least the unincorporated. You may find you want to do, and the board may find they want to do the referendum for the half penny strictly for the beach erosion. And you'll free up general funds for stormwater and road programs. Maybe that way. I don't know, because we haven't had a real presentation on those alternatives. But it could get there. I don't know. But if you don't really have the 4 people necessary to do this, then what is the alternative plan here for us?
Right. And I think maybe an alternative to that even is getting, and this is really where I think we need to try to come up with some options that we're going to get 4 on, not today, but implementing the half penny with a shorter renewal time period that goes out to referendum. I just worry, right? So here's my controversial statement, right? Referendums rely on people's trust with government. And unfortunately, we can, no matter how hard we work, it doesn't matter in the current, we're probably at an all-time low countywide in that department. And nothing that we maybe, but so we have a lot of work to do on that end. And I think if you had a test period of being able to justify, show results, you have a much better chance at the referendum. But that's an option, just throwing that out. We don't have to debate that one right now. But
I look at, you want to win the trust of the people, you give the power to the people to decide whether or not they want to be taxed on an item.
And ultimately,
but it's 2 different things, right? Yeah. One is, and it's very difficult, but we really need to at least address the unincorporated, I feel right away. We need to start somewhere. We've got to start somewhere. We need to give them some sort of authority to push forward somewhere, but continue to workshop just like we do. Right. Continue to.
Well, thank you for your commitment to keep working on this.
Well, no, I did not want it to look like. I mean, you saw my collapsed. I mean, out west we have similar issues. They're different, but it's not a beach, but it's very. It needs funding too. I'm pragmatic about that.
Do we have consensus for the administrator to go talk to Palm Coast and find out what their thoughts are and their funding priorities if the half penny is approved?
Well, but we know that this commission is not going to approve the half cent.
We have not said that yet, Greg. I mean, we just talked about, no, she
said. She did. That's true.
She just said she wants to keep the conversation going.
In the 6 weeks, my only suggestion is in the 6 weeks that they go out and all that, also be working on a secondary plan at the end of the 6 weeks to present us, to at least have something in case we fall apart. I don't want to fall apart and then have nothing again.
Right.
So go back to our unincorporated plan and maybe even a referendum. That's just my take on it.
I need one of you that can tell the administrator we're still good working toward and to not stop working on it, but to continue working on a solution.
Well, I never said I didn't.
No, I'm not saying you did.
I want a beach plan. I just want some better numbers.
Keep working on it.
And I'm never going to get them. So I think the other thing we need, the other part of this puzzle is what 2026 is going to look like. I've met with the tax appraiser. I know what our working number is. Again, if I'm going to do a tax, if I'm going to tax somebody, why not control it? Why not have control of it? But yeah, whatever it is, whatever the numbers work out to be, well, we're going to have to look at them. So yeah, I'm all right. I want to do something.
Okay. Thank you.
We all want the beach. I'm just going to say we all want the beach to be healthy. We all want it. Nobody's disputing it. It's just the tax of it and not going outside the box a little further for me. So I want you to understand that.
Okay. All right, did you need any other guidance, Ms. Petito?
No, sir.
Okay. Any other comments before we go to public comment? All right, at this time, we'll open it up for public comment. I see some red shirts up there. We don't have this on the agenda, but if you've got something to add, we just talked about this the other day. And I know we said we were going to come back and talk about animal control, but we don't have anything prepared. But we are glad to hear, anybody who still wants to speak with us.
Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Thank you. Cameron Orr,
Yes, sir.
Animal Refuge Flagler.
Arf.
I'm always going to take this opportunity.
I would expect nothing less.
I came to you back in March of 2024. I told you I'd been a volunteer at FHS for 3 years. I was on their board for 2 years, and I resigned because I found them resistant to any kind of positive change. I think you all heard in Spade last week kind of that attitude that I encountered. A year ago, ironically, 29 April of 2004, we heard they had no land, no money, no plan to expand their overcrowded facility. And here we met 29 April 2025, and they still have no land, no plan, no money to expand the shelter. Sadly, the county and the city have no plan, no money, and no designated land for any alternatives. So we find ourselves in a position of doing nothing different than we've done in the past. Shame on me for not understanding this budgeting process better and the whole process for getting something into the capital improvement plan. That's on me. I did hear lots of positive comments last week, I guess the 29th, about putting something in the capital improvement plan. But I came away not really understanding, was that direction? Was that a true action item? If it was, who's got that action item?
Gotcha.
When's it going to start?
You're good.
And how might we track it? Those are things I'd just kind of like to know. I'd like to get educated on this. I'd like to know who I can talk to understand that. I'm going to ask these same questions tomorrow at Palm Coast at City Commission to see, do they think there was an action taken or not? And who's got that action? I just don't want to come up here 29 April of 2026 and find that we're in the same position. No money, no plan, and no land designated for any alternatives. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi again.
Hello.
Wendy Tremarchi, Flagler County resident. A few of the many issues that the shelter brought before you previously: ignoring state mandates for rabies cases, executive director stating her hiring practices are giving people second chances. Well, I have one case that caused a past inmate, a loose shelter dog, that was violently killed by a pig not properly housed at the shelter. Also, reporting a sheriff's deputy for leaving a sick dog without care overnight when they knew that was not the case. Was that retaliation for the sheriff's department bringing charges against the shelter's animal control officer? Of course. The deferred prosecution agreement with the prosecutor's office with the animal control officer. The agreement was that the shelter has to make it a policy to have an animal that is hurt or injured immediately go to a vet. If they're not open or the vet is not there, which is usually, then it has to be taken to an emergency center. What a shame that the prosecutor's office has to tell a humane society how to take care of their animals. The bottom line to months, almost a year of this, is a nonprofit board needs to operate properly and lawfully. They have a fiduciary responsibility and also to set and oversee proper policies, to hire an executive director and a proven fund development officer who, as a team, can keep our animals safe and employees in a proper training program, and be able to raise all monies needed for the long-term viability of the shelter. It is not up to the county. If you start a nonprofit shelter for animals, or any nonprofit, it is up to you to have a proper fund development officer to go out to the community and not raise $200 or $500 or have a small event where you raise $10,000. It's up to you to go out and get that $1 million money, $500,000 money, $25,000, $50,000 money on an ongoing basis. It's not up to the county. Not up to the county to help them with anything, except it's a gift. Anything you give them is a gift. I would like to see at least a one-year takeover of the animal control from the city for the county animals. Let's try it. There's a beginning, and because they don't do it well. Also, please require in the next year's contract that an independent audit be completed as required by Florida law if they are soliciting and receiving over $1 million a year in funds. Most counties require this in their contract. You all have been asking about an independent audit for months, and still it's not done. And you saw how confrontational it gets when you speak to them. I appreciate all the time over the last 9 or 10 months. I know this is an extremely sensitive issue with a lot of people, and I know that obviously we just sat through this wonderful presentation, but there has to be working towards a second shelter, however that's done. I'd be more than happy to help with that if you need help. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker. Good evening. Afternoon.
Commissioners, Richard Hamilton, resident of the Hammock. Since it takes me 45 minutes to get here and back again, I thought I might as well take 2 minutes to say what's on my mind. March, I took most of the time away. I went traveling. April, I spent trying to catch up with everything I missed in March, do my taxes and all that sort of stuff. But what 2 months have changed since I left? At the national level, you have tariffs on, off again, grants decimated, is FEMA going to exist, all that sort of stuff going on. At the, and uncertainty over the economy and which way it's going to go. At the state level, we had taxes up, down, whatever, and I guess they went home and still haven't decided what they're going to do. Our neighbors in Palm Coast, well, as you said, let's not talk about them. So one thought is just thanks for all of you for being calm and logical and having discussed. Thanks also to Heidi for the work she does to try and make some sense of this. But right now, I got to say, personally, my attitude has completely changed in 2 months, sorry. I am now at the point where I am paring back on expenses, capital projects. I think everybody and a lot of my neighbors are all uncertain about where we're going. So my thought, listening to you today, is yes, we have to do something about the beach. I mean, it's the third option of just wait and see until something happens is not an option. But it doesn't have to be the first two options either. I think right now, you have the opportunity. There are areas we know on the beach need to be defended. I mean, we could get a hurricane. There are still some low points in the dunes. We don't want Washington Oaks to get flooded the way it was 5 years ago. We don't want the Matanzas Shores drainage area to get flooded the way it was. And we don't want Painter's Hill to be eroded again. But there's a limited number of points where if you were to concentrate your money and at least defend the dunes for this year, you don't have to do nothing. Just do the minimum that you need to do and look at perhaps postponing some of the other projects. There are optional things. Obviously, you've got a grant, you go ahead and do it. But if you don't, or you can put it off, that's what I think you should be doing right now. I don't know if you need this eco-discovery center right now. You need parking by the bridge, but not the whole thing. So I think there are things that you can do. Heidi's done a good job of identifying a lot of little expense issues, not the big douche type things. But I think there are other projects you could look at so you can carry on to defend what's necessary on the beach while we look at the longer term plan, the beach nourishment, and how to do that. And by the way, thank you for spending $2 million giving, or actually I guess it's $4.4 million you've given Hammock Dunes, my community, to do their bit of beach. But I think you could be a lot more prudent for now until a lot of this uncertainty gets answered or becomes clearer over the next 6 months. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Steve Davis. I live on the ocean behind the original seawall in Painters Hill. And I appreciate the county's help in getting it built, but I'm paying for it, as are all the other owners in Painters Hill that have built seawalls. They're all privately owned, privately paid for. The emergency projects that Richard just spoke about are utterly inadequate to protect the area, even the areas that Richard just described. A 6 cubic yard project is not going to help in the face of anything near Hurricane Matthew or a storm of any significant size. The beach and dune erosion and nearshore ocean erosion has left the northern part of the county, Painters Hill, Hammock Dunes, Ocean Hammock, Hammock Beach, Armand Beach, Sea Colony, Marine Land Acres, Washington Oaks, Matanzas Shores, has left all of those areas exposed in ways that are horrifying. We provided you with information related to the need for critically eroded beach designation from Florida DEP recently. There's a chicken or the egg problem with that that needs to be recognized. The DEP will not fund projects that are not designated as critically eroded, but the DEP tends not to designate as critically eroded areas that don't have local funding in the ready to maintain them by the local owners and the local municipalities, the local county. This is the season where DEP goes back to look at all of the areas in Flagler County that are not currently designated as critically eroded, mainly the northern 10 miles. There's a stretch between Painters Hill and Flagler Beach that isn't designated either. But the north isn't designated, and it's exposed in ways that will result in houses on the beach in Painters Hill. It'll result in inland flooding in many of the areas that I just described in the north, with even a storm moderately close. We need to do more than a couple of emergency projects. We need a beach management plan with local funding established now.
Thank you.
Can I ask Mr. Hadid? Oh, no, sorry.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Jim Olsemer. I live in Ocean Hammock. I sent you all a letter about 3 weeks ago, so you know how I feel about the immediate need to do something to get this beach management plan implemented. I see a lot of hesitancy. I don't see too many real resolution here or resolve to do something meaningful. Putting the half cent to a referendum, that's the easy way out. The ESL referendum passed, but I think I remember seeing a line item in the budget of $10,000 to promote it in the county budget. We've got people here who some of you aren't even convinced that the half cent sales tax should be implemented. So it's doomed to failure if you put it up on a referendum because there's a lack of true support to get behind it. So, it's tough. It's tough making decisions, but that's what you were elected to do. And this is not an easy one. There's some political implications. But we're now on our third emergency sand project. And, as I said in my letter to you, the word emergency should have some meaning. And I think that if we continue to vacillate and not make a decision, we're going to kick the can down the road. Next year it'll be, that's that tired old beach management plan again. Woe is me, I got to deal with it. Well, I think that the time is of the essence. They've been working on it for several years. There have been all kinds of options presented, including the Amelia Island plan that the consultant put out, tax people in inverse proportion to their distance from the beach, to an unincorporated only, which was going to carry a price tag of $300, $400, $500, $600 per person, per household, per year in perpetuity. That fell apart. We tried to add a cost to the toll bridge crossing so that could be placed towards beach renourishment. The DCDD board turned it down. So there have been a lot of efforts that have been put forth. What you have now in front of you, as I said, I think it's probably the fairest plan you're going to come up with if indeed you want to do something. I'm glad to hear the general consensus is that do nothing is not an option, but hey, you got to get on board and make some tough decisions and make this happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Chair and people, my name is Iris Reepsam. So I would like to say that I do not want to pay half a cent more in taxes because I'm already paying a lot more taxes. There's a lot of growth going on around the city and the county, as you all know, and it affects our water more than anything, which is really sad. Now we're paying more for water than we ever have, which again, that cuts into my budget, which is limited. So the beach is not my favorite subject because I don't use the beach, not ever. But I think maybe it would be a good idea to charge people that use the beach more than the people that don't use the beach. Like the bridging and paying to go over the bridge would be a good idea. Or put out a general fund to people that maybe they want to just pay more money for the beach would be an option, I think. But generally paying half a cent, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it will add up, it's just too much money when we have so much more to pay to make our life better here in Palm Coast. I mean, that's where I'm from, sorry. But I think it would be better for everybody. And I'm not talking about the people from Palm Coast, but also the ones from Bunnell. So we're all paying way, way more than we should. With all this growth that's going on. And then I don't even want to mention really wildlife. I mean, there's so many people, so many animals being crushed by cars running all over the place, and these poor animals are just being left on the street dying. I mean, that's just not fair to anyone. I moved here because it's a quiet town, it was a quiet town. It's lots of nature around, it's beautiful. Not anymore. If you go down Seminole Road, my God, it's terrible. I mean, where are these people going to go shopping? Where are those people going to go and work? I've been told by a council member who's not here today that we can just work in another county like he does. but that's not an option for everybody. It really isn't. So I think maybe we should look at other options for the beach instead of proposing 0.5 cent more in taxes. That's what I agree. So thank you, Ms. Richardson, for agreeing with that. I really appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Dave Eckert, Cali del Sur. I see we're down to 3 people here, but I still wanted to try to provide some help here. The issue is that some of the speakers have said some things that are not accurate. For 2025, the beach management program is already in place. We have the truck projects that are going to be done in 2024. The Army Corps project was done, so the immediate project is already underhand. You approved today the $8.8 million project for Hammock Dunes. Ocean Hammock and Hammock Beach Resorts will come forward, and Category G is underway for the areas north of Malacompra. That's not an issue relative to the safety over the next 18 months. I think what we're going to have to do, if this does not get traction in some way, because I don't see that you're going anywhere with the proposals, I do want to encourage Heidi to try to make whatever negotiation with Palm Coast and Bunnell that can take place, just to bring that back from an interlocal agreement standpoint. I think we have to have a truth in collections and truth in spending across the county to recognize how the money is coming into the county and how it's being used against the county. Now, Steve and I have worked on this for nearly 7 years, and there is a surplus coming from the Barrier Island of somewhere around 30, and some could be around $35 million. And it's not just ad valorem, it's on all of the business taxes, all of the tourist taxes, and so forth. There's a $30 to $35 million surplus coming from the Barrier Island. I think we want to nail that down. I don't know whether we want to, Steve and I may undertake that. It's going to be hundreds of hours of work, but we might undertake that from an analysis standpoint, not to be greedy. I am not standing here from a position to say that we should pull back money from the wealthy people I'm one of them, from the Barrier Island standpoint that wants to pay money to the school fund, that wants to pay money to our share. But we also want protection from the fact that we're part of the county. If we want to pull the county together and recognize where it has from the standpoint of growth, if you look at the growth of the possibility of the hotels and the in Ocean Hammock and in the additional units in Hammock Dunes, all of this beach is going to be paid for relative to the growth in the county on the Barrier Island, if the Barrier Island can be taken seriously from a growth standpoint in the coastal high hazard areas. We have to do a pro forma looking forward for the amount of windfall that's going to come from growing and protecting the Barrier Island. I'm down to 1 second, but there is a solution from us. Keep asking the question.
Thank you. Any other public comment? All right, seeing none, we'll bring it back. Final comments, Ms. Petito, on anything from public comments?
I didn't have any, no.
Okay. Good comments. Go ahead.
Mr. Hadid, sorry. On the permitting, so Reach 2 is ready to go on the permitting?
I don't think they've completed all the permitting. I think they're waiting for some things, and it has to be put together to go out to bid, et cetera.
Okay. And then Reach 3?
We're primarily pursuing those as emergency projects. You did the 8.8 for Hammock Dunes, a reference to Ocean Hammock, Hammock Beach Resort, and then north of Malacompra, they're going to attempt to use Cat G FEMA funds, which pays a very healthy portion, but those are all sized as emergency berms.
So how do we get the permits to go from emergency I think it's a redundant question, but how do we get FDEP? How, as a board, do we put pressure on FDEP to get us critically eroded? Why can't we get that designation? Why?
I'm not absolutely the person in the know, but I believe that there is a reluctance on the part of DEP to determine that something is critically eroded because the percentage of their money that goes to the repair or whatever of that beach is increased. In other words, they have to pay more money out of state funds.
So if we fix the beach in that area on our own before it's determined to be critically eroded, will we be on our own forever? Because it will not be critically eroded once it gets...
That is not how they apply the criteria. I think you saw the very extensive submittal that was provided to you by Mr. Eckert and Mr. Davis on critically eroded beaches. I don't know if you had a chance to read it, but it was very detailed. So they look at data. DEP looks at data. The county has a new general coastal engineering firm, Moffitt and Nickel,
yep.
And I think that they will work very hard on that. I mean, basically, it's the engineers that work for you agitating DEP to look at that data, and also I don't think it would hurt to have from the political end, the other level of pressing an agency, which would be not through the line staff, but rather elected officials, et cetera. I think all that comes into play, frankly.
Thank you.
If I could, Ansley was coming up.
Hi, Ansley Renke, Coastal Engineering Administrator. I just wanted to add a little detail to what you guys were just discussing with FDEP. I did just speak to them a week ago, and they are considering Reach 2. We have new information to give them. We have several new surveys. They are taking that under consideration to close that small gap that is in Reach 2 that's not currently designated as a critically eroded area. The argument there is also continuity of management. So if you have an area that's in the program, and then you have a gap, and then the rest of the coastline extending south of there is critically eroded, you can make an argument that that gap needs to be managed the same way. So they are taking that under consideration, and then they also asked me if we wanted to take under consideration the submittal by our residents, and I said, yes, please do that. So they will be looking at that as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you. Anything, Ms. Richardson?
Enough.
Okay. I don't have anything else really to say. Appreciate the public comments, and for our animal people, I hope we didn't bring you out under false pretenses that we'd have something today, but I apologize for that if you came here thinking we didn't have it on the agenda. We didn't publish the agenda with it because we didn't have time to work on the material, but we can give direction to the administrator. I don't know how much time she'll need. We were going to look at the options on animal control.
We have the three, I think, takeaways. One was the one-year contract. The other was to work with Palm Coast. And then the third was the capital plan. We just met with Palm Coast. It seems like it was last week. And so we have not met again with them yet. So likely they're in the middle of budget just like we are. So it's probably going to take a little bit of time depending on their schedule. It's possible.
First workshop in June?
It's possible. I can reach out to them and see.
All right. All right, thank you. All right, with that, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Oh, public comment. Well, I did public comment. Oh, Greg's, we got others. Motion to adjourn? Okay, is the motion, we're adjourned. Thank you.
Not as it ever is.